Uh, so Bravo, man, shout out to Bravo, man. I used to actually do
What an
podcasts.
OG.
I used to do podcasts with Bravo, and like he's a doctor. Dude, this mofo used to leave his patients and do a podcast with me and like three other people, and he's got patients talking Detroit Pistons and drafts. Like Bravo's a real one. Shout out to you, Bravo,
Oh,
man.
that's awesome.
But he does have a question. Yes or no? Will the Pistons trade Marcus Sasser? What do you guys think about this?
Well, first of all, Bravo, I hope you're not doing a surgery right now. Dear God. Um, hold on. Sorry. I got to ask about Marcus Sasser's trade value real quick. No, in all seriousness, Bravo. Love seeing you in these. That's an OG name right there. I don't know if they do or not. I think I think the only reason why they would or why they should consider doing it if they do is if for whatever reason Dennis Schroeder's not back and they need to find some form of solution at the third point guard position. Because I actually think if you do bring back Schroeder, I think you keep Sasser and you allow him to play more alongside of Schroeder, because I think the thing we've always said about Marcus Sasser is he's at his best when he's playing off the ball, not having to be the point guard running the offense. When he's allowed to be a scorer first, that's when Sasser's at his best. The problem is, for his size, for what he needs to be in the league, he needs to be able to play point guard. And we know that that's something that he's been working on since coming into the league. It just hasn't come to fruition. So I think Dennis Schroeder's, his like what his role will be on the team next year could potentially have some form of say in that, because I think that's a guy that they really like. I think he's someone that like when I was actually really impressed by his sophomore campaign in the sense of like, did he do anything that like blew our socks off? No, but like he was ready whenever he was called upon. There were a lot of nights where Sasser like went out and like made some really good plays on both sides of the ball. And I think like if you're talking about like a lot like bringing back a Marcus Sasser and like continuing to see what that could look like, I think that's like a pretty good reason to do so. And then like the other thing too is if you look at his salary, he has a $2.75 million contract this year.
Yeah.
Next year it's a team option for 2.8 million. And then in 26-27, it goes up to 5. So realistically speaking, you still have another like you have another like you essentially have one more season with him where you can see what you have at like a pretty cheap value. And if you like what you have, bring him back. If not, that's pretty cheap salary that you can probably trade, or you just don't pick up the option.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, what's the harm in bringing him back?
You need those bodies for the regular season. And I think that's so important that you have good players in those spots and players you can rely on and count on. Paul Reed, when he was needing to play, he would play, and it would be really good. Through at the trade deadline, all these past few seasons, not this past one, but before that, in the trade or the Troy Weaver era, we would buy guys out and say, go have a better life somewhere else and go try to win. But we need those guys because when injuries happen, we're not just saying, oh, well, the season's over. We're still fighting for playoff seeding. So if Marcus Sasser can be that quick bucket, instant bucket, it's a good thing to have. And like Sean was saying, you figure out what you have. And if he does turn out to be something, cool. If not, you know what he is and you know what he can provide, and it's a really solid piece.
I think, Sean, you hit on a crucial point of why they'll probably keep him, and it's the contract. He's cheap, and you're not going to get a player of Marcus Sasser's skill set for that price in free agency.
Nope.
Who knows what happens with free agency? Who knows what happens with Tim Hardaway Jr. and where he goes?
Brooklyn.
Ugh. I'd hate that for him. Yeah. Yikes.
Well, if we're being real, Brooklyn.
I hope not. I think with Sasser, I think he has a prime opportunity to maybe play some reserve minutes, depending on like what they do in the draft and free agency, to get more than garbage time, have more of a consistent role. Because when they weren't trying to force him to be a point guard because he's not, and they let him score the basketball, especially that Spurs game. And I know it's the Spurs and they were without like a lot of their key contributors and players, but he looked very comfortable of just being that player where like, hey, Marcus, go get us a bucket. We know you can do it. That's where I would probably keep him. Now, the draft can cause conversations where you possibly could package like 37 and Marcus Sasser, and you might be able to get something of significant value. Because I think Marcus Sasser does have value. I know some Pistons fans don't think so, but I think that's a guy, if you unleash him, he could easily average 15 points if he was starting. For the Pistons standpoint, I think they keep him unless they get an offer from a team that they just can't take away, or, possibly could they get a first for him? You never really know. I mean, Brooklyn has plenty of firsts. Maybe they kind of covet a guy like a Marcus Sasser and want to have a backcourt of Cam Thomas and Marcus Sasser, just have ISOs for 48 minutes.
Man, what a game of basketball that would be. No, but I mean, with Sasser, it's like coming from Houston, which is like a really like respected college program where like you have to be able to defend and play at a high level on both ends. He's a really high character guy. He does what's asked of him. He stays ready when he's told to be ready. And I know when Marcus Sasser's brought up, people love to bring up my tweet, like the Tyrese Maxey take I had, which by the way isn't really even that crazy in retrospect. I said he could be that class's Tyrese Maxey, which meant like a steal in the late round, but like I guess people just meant that I thought that he was going to be Tyrese Maxey, which like that's a whole other conversation about reading comprehension. But with like with Sasser, like you said, like there are some games where you just watch him, it's like, okay, man, there is something there. Like there is enough there to at least see one more season of $2.8 million of salary and see what you have, because more, like more continuity in a coaching staff, like actually having another season with the same crew and, to be able to like get more opportunities in the second unit.